Well, if you don't write out what you want your ideal life to look like, how would you know what the diluting elements are that you need to remove to have that life have the ability to manifest?
This podcast encourages and empowers you to create your own unique real story, develop your own unique real statement, and discover your own unique real self. The power is yours. Good morning, Paul Adams. Previously, episode 1694 of the 12-Minute Convos podcast. It's been just 3 years, 1 month, 11 days, 13 hours, and 45 minutes since we last had that recorded conversation. That was then. This is now. Paul, how are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I've had a good morning, going on a nice run after we record this today, so life can't be much better.
What part of the world are you in right now?
Up in the Seattle area, just north of there, out in the suburbs.
Are you RVing still?
We are. In fact, I was just going to say we're leaving on June 1 on our 1 year, well, technically 13-month long RV trip.
Wow. So how has it been? How has the trip impacted everything that's going on with Song Financial?
So we leave June 1 of 2020, and what we've done for about the last 2.5 years is really change the way that we work with and do business with our clients in a way that better serves them and gives us the freedom and autonomy to be able to work from anywhere that we are in the world.
How does this feel, though? It's one thing to say, hey, this looks like a great idea. Let's go do this, right? It's another thing to be on the road, right?
Indeed. For the last 3 years, each year we've done a little over a month-long trip. So we've got some experience, and on average, we do about 80 nights a year, 80 nights a year in the RV, but it'll be totally different, you're right, to just be on the road full-time. I'll work 3 days a week with clients, and then the rest of the time will be, just spending time with the family. So 4-day weekend every week.
So the RV, is it that there's the hitch there? What's going on? Is that the office? How do you do that?
We have a Class A RV, so it's like a little bus, right, if you can kind of picture that. And then I'll just work out of the RV when our cell signal allows for it. And then if it doesn't, I'll just go find an office location somewhere around there that I can work for the day. But we do 100% of our client work via Zoom meeting, and our podcast, Your Business, Your Wealth, is pretty simple to run from wherever we are. I have a little Pelican case that packs up all the sound gear, and I can deploy a podcast from wherever I am.
Oh, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. As well as with your earliest childhood memory and what was going on there from your father going to pick up your mom, right? And having the experience of learning entrepreneurship. It's really amazing that you're doing that for your children now.
Yeah. Just I think it is a little bit different for them because they don't exactly, like, they kind of ask questions like, well, why can't all these other friends of ours go? And it's like, well, they don't have work that allows them to work from wherever they are. And kind of explaining the way that we do business and how it's different because they're only 7, 8, and 9 years old.
But I can imagine the impact that it's having on them. Of course, we both know that more is caught than taught. So it's things that they'll see through their time. It's like they're in incubation mode right now. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would agree with that. In fact, one thing that I've noticed as I talk to adults, and we're talking about this long trip coming up, is there's been 3 or 4 people I've met who have gone on long RV trips with family, like 6 months to a year long. And to this day, even if they were under the age of 10, they recall so much about those travels with their family that we're really hoping to deliver that experience for our kids.
You had that as well, right? You said your family would do like once a year road trip, right? This is you as a child.
Yeah.
Do you remember those trips just like it was yesterday?
Yes, but they were painful because that was my father who, before he was a stay-at-home dad, he was a highway and heavy construction guy, and the guy had a bladder made of iron. He could drive 16 hours without pulling over for anything but fuel. And as a kid under the age of 10, that's not the most fond of memories. So, but we would do that. And we did it mainly between Washington and Wyoming because that's where my mother's family lives. So that's what we did a fair amount as a kid. So they were road trips. But the things I most remember is my dad always had the mindset of how fast can we get there? And I remember kind of, in a cute way, like it's very fond memories of my dad, like, yep, we did it in just 15 hours this time. Meanwhile, the boy runs out of the car as fast as he can to hit the restroom. And what we do differently now is those long travels travels, our kids get a chance to, like, we don't have as tight of an agenda. So when I see something cool at the side of the road, an old historic prison, a ghost town, a cool looking dirt road, we just do what we call daddy detours. We take that detour, we enjoy it, we add it to our experience, and then we just keep driving afterward. And that's the thing that my dad never did, because we always had such a tight time schedule. And because we didn't have an RV, we just had a car. It wasn't like we could just be in the middle of nowhere that night. And we didn't have a lot of surplus money. So it wasn't like we could just go, we'll just take an extra day to travel because we're get a hotel. So we've really allowed the RV to give us the kind of freedom when we're traveling on the road to see things that I never really got to see.
What do you sum up the fact that you have been able to have all of these things around you and use them as catalysts for your life? Is it a spiritual awareness that's grown in you? Because there are many people that have similar situations where there are things they can learn from that their parents have done, and learn from what they didn't do. It seems as though you have a fair type of feel, right? Or instinct, or intuition, if you would, or discernment. What do you sum it up to?
Well, I think it comes a lot from the business philosophical study. My faith is super important to me. And there are ways that deeply impacts our capacity to have the freedom that we have. Our freedom comes from not the amount of income we make, which has been a blessing. It's been quite good. But it's the way we choose to live our everyday lifestyle that gives us the freedom to do all these other things. But the philosophical underpinnings of the folks that I've studied with in business have given me the ability to just realize, like, these are some of the things that happened to me as a kid that developed who I am. And then trying to think ahead of what are the experiences, the values, the distinctions that I want to teach my children so that they have the best ability, because it's not so important that they be super successful or any, like, I want them to be happy. And I absolutely want to do everything I can to give them a competitive advantage in the marketplace among their peers, and competitive advantage in many ways, like smarter so that they can earn more income if they'd like, but also an awareness around simple things like money and budgeting, or how to negotiate a contract. My kids babysat a friend's dog, one of our employees actually, over Christmas, and they had to sit with him and review the contract of the dog sitting and gain agreement and agree on pricing and everything else. And of course, other people are, they're kind of excited to do this with little kids. But so many people never get to that in life, and they never think about what are the things that happened to me as a kid that I would like to improve on for my children, or what are the things that happened to me as a kid that I could then reinstitute for my kids that would be valuable and beneficial. Because usually what people do with their kids is just the next thing that comes along, or what everybody to the right and left is doing.
We do have a choice, don't we?
Absolutely.
It's a challenging choice with how things are in society currently. Things are moving so quickly. However, we still do have a choice to stop. It's important, isn't it?
It is. And I think that what allows people to stop more than anything else is to pause long enough to write out, and I mean write it like on a piece of paper, on a document on a computer. What do you want your life to look like? Because we usually just think about the next thing we want or the next experience we want, and we're not thinking about what do I want my entire life to look like, because that allows us to do one of the most important things we do in life, which is decline things. We need to say no. And there's a lot more things to say no to today than 40 years ago for my parents when I was a baby. Like, they didn't have as many things they had to say no to be able to create the life they wanted to create for me. But now, basically, my family has to be in a massive decline marathon, saying no to a whole bunch of stuff, because that allows us the capacity and the space to say yes to the life that we want. If people haven't sketched that out, two things happen. One, things that are currently interesting in the moment can distract us. And two, once we've arrived at something and we successfully have done it, we don't know that we did. Because just like the horizon, happiness continues to move further and further out, and we never get a chance to enjoy the success we've had because we're not noticing that we achieved what we said we'd achieve, because it never got documented.
Yeah, two books come to mind. Essentialism, that talks about a mile wide, inch deep versus a mile deep and an inch wide. And then secondly, the other book that popped up as well, Did It Just Slip My Mind? Where did it go? Oh my, it was right there.
Well, maybe I've read the other one, but essentialism is wonderful. And I think that one of the best things from essentialism, if anybody's listening, is just Google essentialism, because you'll see the graphic. And this graphic that shows up, there's another book called The One Thing, and they both actually have a very similar graphic, which is the idea of people being pushed in every different direction versus what happens if you channel all that energy in one direction. And I know we're close to the end of our 12 minutes, but there's one thing that I think was really important that I actually learned from a business study that I'm in.
Go for it. Share it, please.
This business study talks about, it's called influence ecology. And one of the things that they've done is talked about concentration. Now, we think of concentration like effortful, squinting our eyes, working hard on something. And he said, no, think about the word concentrate on like an orange juice thing. It's removing all diluting elements. Well, if you don't write out what you want your ideal life to look like, how would you know what the diluting elements are that you need to remove to have that life have the ability to manifest? And so it's that concentration that's I've been studying with them for about 3.5 years. And just that one concept of concentration can be a life changer.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. My friend, again, it's been a great pleasure. I do thank you for passing by. I do honor your time tremendously. Your Business, Your Wealth podcast, amazing audience. Check that out. Over 130 episodes now. He's pumping. And on the road. Could you believe it?
Indeed. We just broached 170.
170. Oh my.
Yep. So we only thing we did different is now we've gone to once every 2 weeks. We're definitely not over 1,000 episodes. You are a machine, and you bring the greatest amount of joy and welcoming, and you're so easy to talk to, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Again, amazing audience. Paul Adams, thank you for being on What is Inspired by 12-Minute Convos with Angel Jones. This podcast is produced by Pod Edits. Visit podedits.com for professional podcast publishing.